What's good, friends? Ebony Chappelle checking in here with a little more positivity for your podcast listening and viewing pleasure. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of What's Good with Ebony Chappelle. So thank you to everyone that has been so supportive of the podcast so far. It feels great to have people support something that's special to me and that helps me to share a little bit of what I have with the world, So I just appreciate that. So to everyone that has already liked and subscribed, thank you. Everyone else, if you haven't done that, go ahead and do that, if you feel led to. Like and subscribe. You can also connect with me on social media at Ebony the Writer on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also connect with me on my website, ebonychappelle.com. So, what's good with me? What's been good with me lately is a lot of things. A lot of things are going great. Have a lot to be grateful for. One of those things is being able to connect with some really good friends, being able to connect with people that I truly admire and just support one another. There's nothing like that. Sometimes I think that we take friendship for granted. I don't know that it's really honored and thought of as deeply as it really should be. I know for me, it's been a long time struggle to try and really live into what it actually truly means to be a friend. There's some intentionality behind that. There's some deep thoughtfulness behind what it means to actually be a friend. So I've been grateful lately to run into some people that really embody that and help to stretch me in my understanding and my capabilities as far as that's concerned. So shout out to y'all. And, it's fitting because on today's show, it's a collab episode where I am talking with a friend of mine, somebody who it's crazy. We have not seen each other in several years. One, they moved away for a while, and then two, they came back, but it was during the pandemic. And we still have not gotten together. So I told them, Terrell, who I talked to today on the show, he was supposed to text me so we can get together. But now that I'm saying this out loud, it looks like maybe I need to text him so we can try and figure this out. But anywho, Terrell Parker is the host of Terrell Talks, which is a great podcast. Terrell's philosophy is that everyone has a platform, and it's about helping to inspire people to use theirs and share their story with the world. So really great. And this episode is a collab episode with him. He actually interviewed me a couple of weeks ago for his show. So this episode will include that conversation. But before we jump into that, I want to pause for the cause, which is our Pay Black Women Spotlight. So the Pay Black Women Spotlight for this episode, I want to shout out to other podcasts. This has turned into a whole podcast themed episode, I guess. But I want to give a shout out to the Fab podcast, FAB, which stands for Fake Ass Book Club Podcast. I'm a huge fan. I just found out about the Fake Ass Book Club because I was listening to an episode of Ignorant Philosophy. This ain't about ignorant philosophy though, because this is the Pay Black Women Spotlight. But anyways, I was listening to an episode of the Ignorant Philosophy podcast, and the young lady that was on there is one of the hosts of the Fab podcast. So immediately, I'm, a book person. So I wanted to jump on iTunes and not iTunes, Jesus, Apple Podcasts. I'm showing my age a little bit. but I wanted to hop on Apple Podcasts and, see what they was talking about. So I instantly fell in love. So it is an amazing podcast. They cover not only books, but they cover TV shows, movies, plays, all kind of stuff. I really love their review of the book Will, which is Will Smith's autobiography. If you have not read it, you need to read it. But again, this episode is not about Will, so let me stay focused. Shout out to the Fab Podcast, Pay Black Women Spotlight. Check them out. Yeah, they are the bomb. So yes, that is my Pay Black Women Spotlight for this episode. So today's episode, I said, is a collab with Terrell Parker of Terrell Talks. And we go into this a little bit in the discussion, but Terrell and I first met a really long time ago. We were both working at Black-led organizations in our city, and we were the youngest people in the room. So we pretty much automatically gravitated toward each other because it's like, oh my gosh, you're here, like I'm here, like child, these people is crazy. But no, seriously, just, being young and ambitious and, trying to find our way out here. So we really connected over that. And it has just been, a pleasure getting to know him a little more over the years and sharing space with him and seeing the ways that both of us have grown. Not only professionally, because I think professionally is part of it, but that's not really the stuff that ultimately matters, Sure, that's cool and all, but I think a lot about how we've grown as people and how we've developed and how we continue to develop, because it's an ongoing process. But his dedication to, self-evolution and self-growth is something that I just find super admirable. So, no matter what else he decides to do in life, I just think that piece alone is phenomenal and is something special. But yeah, so Terrell, also, we had a really great experience right before he left town and, went to DC to go do stuff with his company, Black Dream Company. So at the time, Terrell was helping people that wanted to start their own businesses and just needed, someone to help shepherd them through that process. And at the time, I can't even really remember what all was going on with me. I literally can't even remember at this point. But I do know that I was in a place in my life where I really wanted to start to expand, and I wanted to see what I could do, not what opportunities I was waiting on somebody else to give me, not waiting, for someone to decide like I was worthy enough to do whatever. I was ready to try to expand in some other kind of way and really stretch myself. So I sat down with Terrell, and wow, I did not really follow all the instructions that he gave me because, again, it's a process. Um, while I didn't follow all the instructions that he gave me, one thing that we did do was set me on the right path towards what it is ultimately that I was to do. And then years later, I was able to really build upon all the things that he showed me and, carve out a little niche for myself, a niche, however you pronounce that word. Y'all know what I mean. But I was able to, start to take some parts of my destiny in my own hands. Well, I would just say take my destiny in my own hands pretty much. But, it's been a really cool journey, and I appreciate Terrell for all of that. So I've talked enough. Without further ado, let's jump into it. This is my conversation with Terrell Parker, host of Terrell Talks podcast.
All right, welcome all of my talkers out there. I am really excited to interview today's guest. I've known this person for quite a while. She is a legend. Some call her a GOAT. I call her a friend because she is an amazing person who really is, I like to call her a pioneer in doing some amazing work for the community that I live in. So I first met Ebony when she was the marketing director for the Indianapolis Recorder, probably almost 10 years ago at this point. She
Oh,
quickly,
yeah.
yeah, that was a long time ago. I was working at Brothers United. You were at the
Yes.
Indianapolis Recorder, and we were trying to partner on an event. And that was the first time I
Mm-hmm.
think that we'd ever met and connected in person. And then I was like, wow, this brilliant young black girl was just in the meeting, like leading things. And I was just really impressed. And then you quickly moved up at the recorder, and then you were executive director, right? So you were
Well,
or
editor, yeah.
executive editor, yes, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
So
You're
you
okay.
were leading things. You were the person that was in charge. And for people
Mm-hmm.
that don't know, the Indianapolis Recorder is one of the oldest Black newspapers in the entire country. So that was like really big for you
Mm-hmm.
as a young person. I thought, like, as a young person, as a young Black woman, to be the executive editor of one of the oldest Black papers in the country, like before you were 30. Like, I don't think people realize how much of an amazing
Yeah.
accomplishment that is, you know. So then we kept in touch. You started working at the Indiana Donor Network. You were doing some really great, amazing work to try to increase communities of color level of awareness when it comes to donating organs,
Mm-hmm.
donations. So that was really cool because we had the opportunity to work together, and I learned a lot, just so much about why it's important for us as people of color to be donors, and just how what happens when we're not, and what happens when we have people that sit on a waiting list for an organ donation, you know. So I thought, you know, you're doing some really cool work in the community. Then you started branching off. We've always done your own thing. Then you started branching off to your own thing. You know, people heard you on the airwaves. You were eye on the community, you know, 96.3, the number one radio station, you know, in the city. You know, you had a weekly radio show as well. Now you're the host of your own podcast, What's Good with Ebony Chappelle. I mean, you've done it all. You're a community leader. You started the Black Women's Writers Group. I mean, I can go on and on and on
Oh my
and on.
gosh. This
Like,
is
you've
crazy.
done
I'm
so
like,
many
who is this
amazing things.
heifer?
Right, that's you. Okay, like you have been doing some amazing, amazing things for quite a long time. So really excited to have you here. We're gonna have you on last season, you know, but life happened, but we circle back
Yeah.
and now we here because we're gonna talk about two things that I really want to talk to you about. One, continuing a topic from last year about protecting Black women. I think that's still a relevant topic. And then also talking about today's or this season's topic, which is healing. So,
Mm-hmm.
everybody, welcome to the legend, the GOAT, Ebony Chappelle. Thank you for being here today.
OMG, Terrell, I have told you multiple times, but I will tell you again publicly for all of the world to hear. I love you and I appreciate
Yes.
you, and I am grateful to know you. Yeah, I feel very blessed, to have such an intro, and I feel very blessed to be here with you and to see all the amazing things that you have done and accomplished. Grateful that you came back to NAP because I know you probably was not intending on that being the case.
Right.
But you are one of those people that I just admire and appreciate it so much because the work that you were doing, it was not easy, and I know at times very thankless because of the way that, like, I'm trying to figure out what's the PG version of this. Just like the way people be moving sometimes. And I'm just like,
Right.
what in the absolute hell? I don't
Right.
understand. I don't understand. But that's not about that.
Well,
This is
we've
not
been through the
about
fire.
that.
We've been through the fire.
Yes.
I
Yes.
admire and I respect you as well because of all the amazing work that you're doing. And I think it's so interesting because we're kind of on like two similar paths as young
Absolutely.
people, young leaders in this community. That I feel
Mm-hmm.
like really, I just look at you and I'm like, wow, Ebony is just
Mm-hmm.
always doing something amazing that's like inspiring people, that's changing the game. So my first question that I want to ask you is, what inspires you to be great?
Hmm. That's a good question. So I think one of the biggest things that inspires me to be great is when I think about all the things, and this is a new one for me. It took me a while to really get to this point, but when I think about all of the things that people around me did to help make it so that I could have an opportunity to do this, to live out, like as Oprah says, living God's dream for me. Like I feel like, it's a big dream, so I got a long way to go, but so far so good. But I think that inspires me just thinking about all the people, like my family, my parents, people in the community that did a lot to make it so that I could have the opportunity to do these things. And sometimes it's crazy because, and I know we're going to get on the topic of healing, I didn't recognize some of those things that I went through growing up as like they were catalysts for what happened down the line. Sometimes I always felt like, wow, these things are like very unfair. This thing is hurtful. I don't know why this is happening or whatever, but not necessarily understanding or accepting the bigger picture, because while there were challenging things that happened, there was also, stuff like growing up in church and having the first opportunity to practice public speaking and, try out different parts of my creativity and different things like that. Like there were opportunities in my life to do all of that, that the people in my life made so. And it took, getting older to really reflect and be like, damn, like, okay, it all worked out. Like all of this kind of worked together for a reason, so that inspires me.
Wow. So the people in your life, you said your family, and also the things that you've gone through. So
Yeah.
what inspired you specifically to be a storyteller? Because you're an amazing
Mm,
storyteller. And I think one thing that's a consistent thread across everything that you do is you are a storyteller. You tell people stories, whether you're hosting an event, whether you're doing your podcast, whether it's Eye on the Community, whether you're,
mhm.
telling a story of donor donation. I think you're a consistent storyteller. So, what inspires you to tell stories?
Mm. You know, I think a lot of it has to do with being a person that has like a huge imagination and being very curious about people and what makes them tick. And I think a part of it comes from times in my life where I felt misunderstood. And I think everybody goes through that. Everybody on some level feels a little misunderstood. Like nobody really gets it. But it's crazy because the stuff that sometimes we feel people don't get, we all have in common or we can relate to on some level, like when you really drill all the way down. So I think that is kind of what sparked it in me. And then I was an interesting kid because while I was very like into my own mind with a lot of stuff, like really like self-contained, I was a talker. Like that was one of the
Oh,
things that I got in trouble for.
me too.
Yes, and now here we are.
Right, here we are.
So it all works out. But yeah, so definitely was like always like this, the talking thing was like a big deal. But then I discovered I didn't even know what a journalist was. But one of my classmates told me what a journalist was when I was in elementary school. And in my elementary school, they had a like news program in the library in the media center. So I joined it and I stayed like in that program all the way. Like no matter what school I went to, I would seek it out and find out if they had that
Wow.
program.
So all the way
And
back since elementary school.
yeah, since
Wow, I didn't
elementary
realize that.
school. Yep. So I just stuck with any type of like media stuff. I loved to write. Like I was always like inclined toward that. And I was a voracious reader. And I was a person that like some of the things I wanted to read growing up, like I got in trouble for that too, because I was always the one that like if I was interested in the topic, I was going to read about it. And then my big cousin most of the time would be the one that took us to the library. And she'd be like, Ebony, you're too young to read that. You need to put that back and you need to pick up one of these like the young youth adult books or whatever it was called back then. And I'd be like, yeah, I could read that, but also I want to read about these other things. So uh I don't know. I think like that curiosity, like that like very deep like inner imagination and stuff like all like geared that up. And then I got older and I just couldn't let it go. It was just a part of me that I couldn't let go. And I went through a lot of like random situations when I graduated from college. And even in college, like my major was something completely different because I thought I wanted to go into the business end of things because I thought I would have a better shot at getting a good job. So I
Mhm.
kind of abandoned, like, not really abandoned the creativity, but I kind of put it in its own box. So I still was like, me and my friends, we had a sketch comedy TV show. Like I did documentaries in college, I did all that stuff, but it had nothing to do with my schoolwork. Like my schoolwork was like on a completely different path altogether. But then, I graduated from school, was having a hard time finding a job. So I worked a bunch of odd jobs and stuff like that. But I tried to always kind of keep like my hand somewhere in the mix when it came to
Mhm.
that realm, some kind of way. And then, it ended up, turning into, what is now my career. But
How did you
yeah.
go from there to getting your own show on a radio? And not just a
Mm-hmm.
show, any radio station, like the number one radio station in the city. That's a pretty
Mm,
big deal. So how did you
yeah.
go from there, like it not necessarily being a career path that you were choosing to
Mm-hmm.
now you're doing this and you have your own radio show? How did that, I know that didn't just happen. How did that happen?
No, it did just happen. So I think that came about from a mixture of a few things. Like I never, no matter what I found myself doing for work, whether I was working in a restaurant or a warehouse or, even when I went to the newspaper, like I still had in my mind like this dream of I feel like this is my path, like telling people stories and engaging with the community and using like the gifts of storytelling and like news and stuff like that. I just never I was like very like just stuck on that. So I worked super, super hard to put myself in spaces where those type of things could come true. Like one, it was like a big belief thing, and then two, it was like busting my ass to where when the opportunity did come, when somebody did ask, like, would you consider? I would be ready to like, okay, yeah, I can do that. So like with Radio One, that blessing came about because the recorder had a really good relationship with Radio One. So when I got there, I was big on like I want to keep nurturing this relationship and always be available. Like when they would call me and be like, it's a Saturday afternoon show or Saturday morning show that comes on. Our host canceled. Can you come? Yes, I'm there
Okay,
and
yeah,
I will do
every
it.
opportunity.
Yes, I would not say no ever unless it was like it would have to be something so extreme for me to say no. And even then, I'm trying to figure out how I can split myself in two and like do this thing and that thing because it was something that I always wanted. So that's really how that came about. And I just stuck with them, try to keep those relationships fresh. And beneficial on both sides. So I think that's where a lot of opportunities come from in my story is, the belief first and then, working like extremely fucking hard and then uh, trying to keep those relationships going. And it's challenging for sure for more than a few reasons, but I really think that's how it comes about. So how I ended up getting the show that I used to do, I don't do it anymore. But how I ended up getting back on Radio One on a more consistent basis was Dion Livingsworth. That is the excuse me, I said his name so wrong. Dion Livingston. Jeez Louise.
It's
Yeah,
early. It's
y'all charge it to the
right.
head, not the heart. Dion Livingston, who is the GM of Radio One, and then um, Bink Turner, who was the programming director at the time. They called me up because I had just written a story about Dion for the Indiana Minority Business Magazine, and they called me up and they were like, "We want to bring this show on Hot early in the morning on Sundays, but we want to bring this show on. Like, we think you would be good for it. Do you want to do it?" And I was like, "Absolutely, I want to do it.
Once again,
Let's."
the opportunity came up,
Yes,
we're ready to take it.
exactly. I was like, "Let's talk through how we make this happen." And then we figured it out and I started doing it. And that transitioned into a few different things. So this last time I was on the radio for 2 years or so before, I had to part ways. But, I said even then, I was like, look, I always want to be a part of the Radio One family. So anytime y'all need something, call me and let me know.
Right.
And I will be there to help out. But yeah.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this question. Why is it
Mhm.
important for you to, why do you think it's important for a Black woman's voice to be represented in the media? And I think
Yeah.
for me, you really kind of represent that Black woman's voice, like in today's, like for our community. I think
Hmm.
of the Black woman's voice, I think of Ebony. So why is it
Wow.
important for the Black woman's voice to be represented?
Yeah. One, I appreciate that compliment for sure. That is something that I don't take lightly at all. I think it's important for the Black woman's voice to be represented because nothing in this city or many other cities, but just specifically to talk about Indianapolis, nothing moves here without our hands being involved with it. Like anything that
Yeah.
you've seen of significance happen in this city, you may not know it, it may not ever be publicized, and it may not be common knowledge, but you better believe behind the scenes, Black women's hands was all involved in it. Their minds, their hearts, their energy, their talent was heavily involved in it. And unfortunately, and I've witnessed this more than a few times. You talk about the conversation about protecting Black women. Um, their voices are not um, accepted as um, important, or like significant. It's like, yeah, thank you for doing whatever it is that you did, but also like when it's time for somebody to talk and like pontificate about whatever, it's like a man's voice is respected more. I've experienced that myself multiple times, and I've witnessed that happen to other women too. And it really pisses me off. So I think if there's an opportunity for me or any other Black woman, that has something to say, when we have an opportunity to say it, I think it's important, that happens because there are lots of people that would prefer that we barely are heard from ever.
Whew, you just said
Yeah.
a statement. And it reminds me of a video I was watching. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, you should. Monique
Hmm.
recently did an interview on the T.S. Madison show.
Oh yes, I watched it because I love me some
Yes.
TS. I
Yes.
am in the hive, whatever the hive is called. I'm in
Yes.
it. So I watched that the other night, and I was like, "Ooh, wee,
that
this
last
is."
that last
Mm,
minute of the video, where she says a Black woman should not have to die in order for her to be believed. She
yeah.
said, um, too many times a Black woman dies, then we believe her, then we make a movie about her life, and then
Yep.
we give her all the flowers. And then she named all the Black women. She talked about the Eartha Kitts,
Hmm.
the Hattie McDaniels. She talked about just all of the women who lived boldly, who spoke the truth, and
Mm-hmm.
who weren't believed and weren't heard during their times.
Mm-hmm.
And then, unfortunately, it was after that we want to believe, So I think
Yeah.
it's an important message that we need to drive home is that we should always give Black women the opportunity to lead and use their voices because, like you said, and then I was just thinking about all the events that I've worked on and that were successful. And you're right, like there was a Black woman somewhere in the mix,
Mm-hmm.
behind the scenes making it happen for those things to be
Yeah.
successful, So it's important that we give them their flowers and their everything that they deserve right
Yes.
now.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
what issues are going on that you think we should raise awareness about in relation to Black women right now? And then I have a
Mm-hmm.
question.
Yeah.
I've been seeing a lot on social media that a lot of Black women in the city of Indianapolis have gone missing. I just want to know, like, what's going on with that right now?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll address the first thing as far as like issues that we should pay attention to when it comes to Black women. I think one, I mean, there are lots of them, but some of the ones that immediately come to my mind, one, domestic violence, I think is one that people need to, be paying attention to and find out ways to get involved. Like it's something that I'm passionate about. I haven't gotten to the point in my life where I've been directly involved in some of the efforts, because there are some things within myself that I just have to, continue to work through before I can really show up fully in that space. But it's something that I fully support is the work around that. I think we need to be paying attention to reproductive health and infant and mother mortality because that's a big one. Um, Going along in the health vein, HIV,
Mm-hmm.
which I know, like it's been very, very difficult, especially in our city, to gather like a force of energy behind raising awareness when it comes to that in the Black community in general.
Right.
It has been like pulling teeth to try to get that to be talked about as heavily as it should. But yeah, I would say HIV. In the nonprofit and corporate spaces, I think there needs to be a reckoning around how Black women have been treated, and when it comes to equity and payment and leadership and things like that. I just think there needs to be a complete and total reckoning. I don't know what that's gonna look like, but when y'all ready to pop off, like I don't know. Let me shut up. But no, I just think that there needs to be a reckoning. And I'm starting to see little glimmers of that because of some of the conversations that I, have been a part of and some of the conversations that I've witnessed. I think people are really starting to wake up to that. And I think it's just residue of the George Floyd effect, but that's a whole nother conversation for another day. Um, and then, that conversation that you brought up around like missing women, missing Black women, I think that we need to figure out what's going on because honestly, I see that stuff and I'm like, I am confused around the frequency
Mm-hmm.
of it. And like, it's, it just seems like it's happening a lot. And I'm like, whoa, like, what is happening? Is it that, because this is something else that you got to, really think about when it comes to how things are talked about in the media. Is it happening more or is it being reported more?
Right.
And I have not done the research to find out if it's just happening more, but also I do know that when it comes to data around Black women going missing, like it's not taken care of properly, just like lots of other crimes that happen to Black people in this country. It's not being reported properly because, you know, certain people don't care
Right.
what happens to us. And that's painfully obvious. That's not a you know, realization, like big realization of any sort. It's just the truth. Like there are lots of people that don't care about what happens to us. So I think that it's going to be very, very hard without the proper resources for us to get down to the bottom of that. But some of it, if I'm just to speculate on some of the stories that I'm like aware of, Some of it has to do with domestic violence issues. Um, I think about the young lady that, and this didn't happen locally, but the young lady that went on a date with someone, and a white man, black young woman, went on a date with this older white man, and then she, was found dead in her apartment. And they were the last two people to see each other, and they didn't even, question this guy or anything. Like, that type of shit, happens a lot more often than we probably would even want to be aware of, because, like, yeah. Um, so yeah, I think those are some of the biggest things that we got to pay attention to. But
Yeah, it's a lot. So thank you. Thank you for,
it's a lot.
this important because you bring up a lot of issues that people need to know about, that
Mm-hmm.
people may not know about, that people may not hear about, that people may not
Yeah.
be aware about. So I think it's really important, especially when we talk about mother and infant mortality. I don't think people
Yeah.
realize that Black women are the most likely to die while giving childbirth. You know,
Yeah.
I don't think people
Yeah.
realize that. I don't think it's not acceptable because in the
Mm-mm.
day of modern medicine, this should be preventable.
It
But
should be preventable. It should be like, no woman should be in danger of dying when she gives birth to a child. And then the stuff that happens with Black women, like, I witnessed certain things with my sister. Two of my sisters gave birth this past summer, like within 24 hours of each other. So it was like a busy
wow,
time in our
it
world.
is a busy time.
It was very intense. But I was there with one of my sisters when she was giving birth, so I got to see the experience up close and personal. And if she didn't have a support system, if she didn't have people that were there and that were alert and that felt comfortable having conversations with the practitioners, like, if she didn't have all that, like, she would not have had a good experience.
Mhm.
Because they just, sometimes it's like they're the people that are in charge, it's like they're running on a script that's just like whatever. So that interpersonal relationship is not really there. So you got to have somebody to have your back. And even then, Serena Williams
Right,
got all the resources in the world and they almost killed this woman.
right. So,
Yeah, it's terrible.
yeah, so it's important that we talk about these issues and that we continue to talk about them and that we
Mm-hmm.
continue to, you know, amplify work that's being done to help the cause, because a lot of people don't
Yeah.
realize that Vice President Kamala Harris is really doing a lot of work around improving the mother and infant mortality rates for Black women, so it's
Mm.
important that we talk about these issues and that we
Yeah.
support the work that's being done because it does directly impact our community, our women,
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for
Yeah.
answering that. So I want to switch topics
Yeah.
slightly.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier before we jumped on the recording, you said that
Mm-hmm.
healing is important for you right now. It's a part of your journey. So what is healing? What does that look like for you?
Mm. So for me, it looks like a few things. One, therapy, which I know you are a fan of therapists. I love the conversation you
Yes.
had with your former therapist. I thought that was beautiful. But yeah, therapy is majorly important. I'm a cheerleader for it too. I've been in therapy consistently for the past 8 years. And
Wow, that's
yeah,
commitment. 8 years. That's
yes,
commitment.
it is commitment and it is necessary. It is a necessary part of my life. Like, I explained it to somebody one time. It's like it's a utility bill for me. I'm just like, same way you pay your car insurance, you pay this, you pay that. I'm going to my therapist. Other people have maintenance routines where they're getting their hair and nails done, however often. I'm going to my therapist
Yes,
as
absolutely.
often as I need to, So it looks like therapy. It looks like COVID has been like a crazy time for everybody. We've all had different experiences with it. For me, one of the silver linings of it was that I was able to develop a morning routine for myself. And that's something I had wanted to do for years. For years, I was like, oh, I want to, like, I had written about it. Like, I want to wake up at this time. I want to do these things. This is how I want my day to go, whatever. And I finally got the opportunity to do that, and that has been beautiful.
What was
So
the part of your morning
yeah,
routine?
yeah. So I read, I write a little in my journal, and I meditate. I would say those are the big three. And sometimes there's other stuff that gets added in depending on like how much time I have or whatever. But if I do at least those three, then I'm good to go.
Mhm.
Meditation is like a newer one that I folded in, but I've always wanted to be a person that meditated. I always wanted to do that because something just I can't remember what it was, but I think I had like read something or seen something. I was like, oh man, like I think that needs to be for me. Like something just drew me to it. So I've been practicing. I love when you post your daily meditations. I've done a couple of
That's part of my
those.
morning routine.
Yes. Yeah. I love it. So I that's something that I definitely want to get deeper with. Um,
And so you said
yeah.
journaling.
Yes.
So tell me about that because that's also part of my morning routine as well as journaling.
Journaling.
Yes, I
Yes.
love journaling. So why journaling for you?
Yeah, so for me, when I was growing up, I kept journals off and on like all my life. And I stopped for a long time. I did not journal at all. And when I think back on it, I'm like, I really should have been journaling during that time because it would have helped me so much with some of the things I was going through. And this was pre-therapy. So I'm thinking about like my high school and college years and immediately after college. Some of the stuff that I went through, I'm like journaling would have really, really helped me navigate it. So for me, journaling is a written conversation with your higher self.
Mm.
That's
Ooh,
really
that's
how I
deep.
use it.
That's deep.
Yeah, that's how I use it. So I'm completely honest. I do not shy away from nothing. Like whatever it is that's on my heart, I feel like I need to write about, I write about it and I just get it out. And it's funny because there are things that will play on a loop in our head or certain experiences that we have that will play on a loop in our head and then you stew and then you get deeper and then you start plotting revenge and then this happens and that happens and it's like okay, you know what you could do before any of that happens, you could just, and it's so accessible if you know for people that are literate, which I would never take for granted that we have a literacy issue, but you know it is accessible. It's just a pen and a pad, that's
Mhm.
it. It's simple materials and it doesn't take long. It could just be a couple minutes longer if you have the luxury of time, but you know it's something about writing down these thoughts and then looking at them that's like wow, this is, it doesn't need to be like that. Like, okay, now I can understand how I can navigate through this better. Like there's been times where I've journaled about things and I've just like wrote out like this is how I would like this situation to end or to transform or get better and just like map it all out. And then sometimes it helps. Like I can actually have a game plan. I started adding in gratitude pieces to my journaling. So every day there's just three bullet points of things that I'm grateful for in the moment. Then I started adding setting an intention for the day. So it'll be something real simple. Most of the time, the intention is like over and over again. My intention for today is to have a good day. My
Mhm.
intention for today is to do my best.
Mhm.
You know, most of the time it's very simple, but those are effective. I'm just like, that is, if I don't do nothing else today but have a good day, fine by me. Fine
Absolutely.
by me. If I did my best, fine by me.
And
You
that's enough.
know,
That's enough.
that's enough. The rest will take care of itself. But yeah, I'm a heavy on journaling. It's amazing and vision, and I use it for visioning too.
So your journals are deep. Your journals go deep. I'm think I might have to
Yeah.
take a few of those and incorporate them
Please,
in my journals.
please take all of them. Take whatever
Yes.
works for you, because I'm sure I borrowed some of this shit from somebody elsewhere. But yeah.
Yeah, so what else is a part of your healing? You said you got your morning routines down now. What else is a part of
Hmm.
your healing?
Yeah, so morning routines, therapy, some other things that are a part of my healing is more fun stuff. So making fun a priority, which just
Okay.
sounds so hilarious to me because for a long time it was not. It was like either I was all fun or I was
Mhm.
all work.
Uh-huh.
But trying to find a balance in between the two, and most of the time it was all work. Like the real fun stages, that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But I was like, oh my gosh, I need to prioritize fun because it's good for me to like you have to have levity in life. So I've been working on that. It's definitely a work in progress, but working on prioritizing fun more. And um glamour is a new one for me too that I've been like intentionally working at.
Flavor.
Yeah. So just tapping into my like inner like glam goddess person or whatever. So again, a work in progress, but I'm much more intentional about the energy I put toward that part of myself now because for a lot of years in my life that part was like shut out
Hmm.
through like conditioning, certain environments I was in I was like not really allowed to do certain things or certain behaviors were like totally shunned because it was like you need to just focus on being smart
Hmm.
and doing work. You don't need to be focused on that because that's stupid and that's frivolous and all types of like anti like women rhetoric basically. I didn't know that that's what it was
Follow.
at the time.
I think you
Yeah.
follow Candace Bimbo, right?
I do, and
Mhm.
I just got her
I
book.
just
It's
got her
sitting on
book
my
too.
shelf. Have you
Uh-huh.
started it yet?
I started it, but I haven't had a chance to really sit down. So this weekend is actually my weekend to really sit down
Oh,
and
yes.
read it.
Okay. I haven't started it yet, and it's going to be a minute because I got some other books in queue on Libby. So I'm like, let me get through them first, and then I'm going to
Mhm.
read her book because I had ordered it after I listened to one of her book talks with Tammy Winfrey Harris. I was like, yes, I got to get her book because she
Yes.
is speaking my language.
Yes. When you
Yes.
were saying that, it made me think about her book.
Yeah, yeah. So that's been a new one for me too with the healing because I had to reconcile these thoughts and these experiences that I had had that told me that I was not allowed to be beautiful or sexy or feminine or whatever. And then I had to reconcile the experiences that I had where people like told me that I wasn't any of those things. And
Hmm.
then for me to be grown now and be like, actually,
Right. You mean to tell
the
me
truth of the
brilliant?
matter,
I can be
yes,
brilliant and glamorous. I can be
yes,
both.
I
Yes.
can be both. And I
Right.
can be a lot of both if I want to.
Hmm.
So that's what healing looks like for me now is being okay with being a lot of whatever it is that I want to be and being completely fine with that. And it it has been a really great journey. It's been extremely challenging. But I feel really good about it. I had some challenging moments with some of my family members, and that really was the catalyst for some of it. I feel like once I got to the other side, just to keep a long story short, once I got to the other side of being angry with my parents, it really like freed me of so many things.
Hmm. That's healing.
It is healing because I was like, ooh, I didn't realize like it was that deep for me. And then once we got to the other side of it and we're all good, everything that I ever needed to say has been said. Everything that could have possibly needed to be forgiven is forgiven. It's all clear. And I'm just like,
Right.
what is this new thing that I feel? Like, what is this? So
This all
yeah.
you gotta do is just, get to that other side of that healing sometimes.
Yes.
And then I think it frees up just so much more because you're so much lighter and more free on the inside. I feel like it just
Mm-hmm.
frees up so much more in every aspect of your life. So that leads me to my next
Yes.
question. What's next for you now that you're in this new phase of life? I see it, I feel it. I feel your energy. Even though we through the screen, I still feel it through your
Mm-hmm.
energy. So what's next for Ebony Chappelle?
I don't really know.
Okay, and that's okay. Sometimes we are there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't really know. Yeah, but I do. So there are some things I do know. So I want to be, you know, more I want to continue to elevate in like my spiritual walk, my spirituality. I want to continue to elevate in my you know, areas of compassion and things like that. And I want to continue just to elevate like as a human being. That's my biggest thing. Everything else is interchangeable at this point. Like I have things that I'm working toward that I would like to see happen, but I'm very flexible, honestly, on a lot of it, which has always kind of been my flow. Like there were times where I felt like I was so like really, really focused on whatever task was in front of me at the time. But in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, this is what I'm focused on now. But also, like, if this is not the thing 5 years from now, like, I could be okay with that because I'm sure there's going to be something. I don't necessarily have to have it all sorted out right now. But I'm just like, if I'm continuing to, try to elevate myself as a human being, then wherever it is I'm at, it's gonna be cool.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much where I'm at with it. So we'll see. I may or may not be well, no, I am. I haven't talked about this a lot, but I'm going back to school.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank
Congratulations.
you. Thank you. I'm going back to school. So that'll be a new thing I in my life in the near future. So other than that, yeah, the rest of it is,
Yeah, I feel like
it's
you
in the
got some
air.
secrets in there that you just can't tell us yet. So we're gonna have to make sure that we
Possibly.
check back. Yeah, that was one of those. I got some stuff going on, but I can't really say yet. So we're gonna have to check back with you in a
We
little while
check
once these
back.
announcements start coming down. Okay, then we're gonna check back.
Yeah, we can do that. We can definitely check back. Yeah.
Yes, but I definitely see big, huge things for you in the future.
Likewise.
That you have such an amazing voice, such a powerful voice, and an important voice. And I think you really said something that speaks so true. I'm gonna focus on being the best human, the best me. Everything else will fall into place. And I think that's just so profound. And I think it's so true. So I'm happy to hear that you're in that good place. And I can't wait to see what things fall into place really, really soon.
Well, thank you, my friend. I love you. I appreciate you. And all of those things that you share with me, I feel the same for you. So I cannot wait to see how things continue to evolve and elevate. And we just take off and keep
Absolutely.
meeting each other in the stars.
Okay, absolutely. I'm with it. I claim it. Thank you,
Yes.
everybody, for joining us, Terrell Talks. And this is a special collaboration episode with
What's good with Ebony Chappelle?
yes, thank you for listening. Tune in next time. And thank you again for my fabulous, fabulous guest. It's been amazing. Appreciate you. See you
Thank
soon.
you. See you. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you, Terrell, for a fabulous conversation. We will have to do it again sometime, and I'm gonna ask all the questions, and we're gonna, get into it. But again, thank you so much. Thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in. Have a great time and a positive life, y'all. Peace.